Hi everyone, in this video I'd like to go over the design of this little cafe I designed in Blender. Here we have a pretty compact main zone with 2 couches and several armchairs, a small corridor with a self-serve zone, a loo and a confectionery kitchen. The loo looks like this. Also, the outside part is designed too. So let's take a closer look. It all started with measurements. When the room is not too large and complex, I like to display the dimensions on panoramic photos. For this I place a collage of such photos in Sketchbook, where all entires are placed on a new layer. In such rooms, it is important to check the diagonals. I drew out the plan and as it turned out, if there were no additional diagonal dimensions, it would be extremely difficult to find the right angles. After a debate with the customer, the final agreement of furniture and equipment looks like this. There is a main hall, a corridor, a loo, a pastry kitchen and a nice looking terrace. I dropped the DXF into Blender and outputted the geometry. The task was such that it was needed to develop an interior and exterior design, so it seemed I could throw everything into different collections and do everything in one scene. The first 3 frames in the timeline will be for exterior and the rest for the interior. Using fSpy, I threw 3 cameras and bound them in the timeline. It requests additional effort to make everything match, but it's cool when, for example, part of the interior is visible through the window. After setting up the exterior cameras, first of all I've worked on the interior, because it is here that the concept of the establishment is revealed the most. Here inside we have the central part, bar counter with all the necessary equipment, a coffee maker and coffee grinders. In the shelves there is a backlight. As a decoration of jars of coffee, although in reality it's some kind of spheres or plums or so, from some distance it resembles coffee beans, so everything is okay. On top there's an additional place for paper cups. Here we have a skin modifier, shelves with plants copied by instance, although a better optimization would be to place them into a separate instance collection. I decorated this wall with glass with a print illuminated at the edges. I couldn't find a model of such a cylindrical showcase anywhere, so I had to make it by myself. To reproduce the ornament that is already present in other chain coffee shops, I took the photo that had been sent to me, improved it a little, threw it into Blender and ran the image trace to turn it first into a grease pencil and then into geometry. But the kitchen area is not very eye-catching. There's simply a set of various equipment. The loo is made of small format tiles. I deliberately extruded a few pieces inside and added a material of the orange wall to them, and carefully leaned various inscriptions against them. I like how the unevenness of the ceramic tiles creates interesting highlights. It works well in such a small space. The material of the tile looks like this. The textures are taken from the manufacturer's website, and the rest is a creative process to give boundary varieties. For the loo, I used a different camera, having previously written in its name the extension that I will be used for rendering. It would be convenient if the interface provided animation rendered with different camera formats. However, since the rendering time is quite short, 3-6 minutes, it's not a significant inconvenience. As for compositor, I like to add a mist pass so that an aerial perspective appears in the visualization. A certain foreground and background consistency in the image. Just a little, but in my opinion, a pretty neat improvement. Now briefly about lighting. From the outside, in a separate collection, additional light is large and powerful ellipses. The next slide is a panoramic photo of the street that I took during the measurements. The material is adjusted in such a way that all the light passes through, such as one I just mentioned and Nishita, which, by the way, I slightly reduced the saturation. Inside track spotlights with IS. It's important to always aim at specific objects, creating light accents. All backlights, or almost all, are light material. As usual, there are several types of them in the scene. I always write down the intensity value and color in the name of the material, so it is much easier to navigate when the general list opens. Since the light sources are not visible in the kitchen, I put simple squares here. Outside the light is more intense, so the exposure parameter is reduced and animated so that after the second frame it becomes 0. The material of Shadowcatcher is grey because if it's right, there will be too little shadow. If there is too much black color, much overshadow. The collections are configured in such a way that some of the internal objects are linked to the outside collection. Also, in separate collections are person, alloy, drawings, and decor in sub-collections of the corresponding spaces. There are two collections called objects, where all the junk that I discard in the design process falls into, and if I need something from it quickly, it easily can be turned on and look at what's inside. You may be wondering how many PC resources are needed for such a project. And although there's not a large area, there's probably enough dense geometry to use in case when all collections are enabled almost all of the RAM in my system, which is 80 gigs. And I wonder after a few minutes the system reduces it to around 20 gigs. So when it happens, the scene can be rendered. Let's try to run the render and see what it shows. That's it, guys, for today's scene and design review. I hope you like it. If so, press the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.